Tennessee has actually improved their quarterback position by adding Joey Aguilar.
Locked On presents The Portal, the daily podcast covering college football recruiting and everything NIL. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome back into the Portal Podcast, where you get your daily transfer portal, NIL, and recruiting news. I'm your host, Brian Smith, longtime college football writer and recruiting analyst. Thank you for making the Portal Podcast your first listen each and every day. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. We've got a lot of players entering the portal to discuss, some that made decisions, and some that entered the portal, then changed their mind and they're going back to the same school. That's at the end of the show. In the middle, we've got a few schools that might even have some coaches getting fired. Matter of fact, I'm pretty sure of it. Unless they hit on this spring transfer portal window because they got some holes to fix. It's year 3, year 4 for them in their tenures. If it doesn't go well this year, that may not go so well for their overall opportunity to be employed. But to start the show, Tennessee, out of the blue, Joey Aguilar is going to be a Vol. He's going to actually be, in my opinion, a better fit for Tennessee than Nico Iamaleava was. And that is the biggest topic, and let's dive right into that. Joey Aguilar is a former junior college player, played a couple years at App State, and he's going to be technically a fifth-year senior, but because of the whole new JUCO rule, the way I understand it, and maybe I'm wrong, somebody please correct me if I am, drop a comment on YouTube, but he has 2 more years of eligibility. He'll be a very experienced player. This will be his 5th year in college. And because, again, of the JUCO rule, he'll have another year in 2026. If I've missed in any way, shape, or form, let me know. But I'm pretty sure that's the way this works. It seems like the NCAA changes rulings every 10 seconds. But anyway, this is a guy that's experienced. He has some moxie to him. He knows what it's like to be the underdog. He played at Appalachian State, transferred to UCLA this spring, but they brought in Nico. So now he's going to Tennessee. Here's the biggest thing. If I am correct on the eligibility point, Tennessee won't be gaining a one-hit wonder. Now, they would have probably accepted that because their quarterback situation is rough. And then one of the young guys, either Jake Merklinger, who's a redshirt freshman, or, well, anybody they would have brought in and somebody, it doesn't matter. They didn't have any experience. They just didn't. Jake had 9 snaps last year, if I remember right, or 9 passes. Then you bring in a true freshman as well. Very talented, but true freshmen aren't going to get it done at Tennessee. Let's be honest. They needed something that was proven, and it's even better that they're going to have a guy for 2 years. Again, I hope I'm right on this, and I hope for Tennessee's fan, every one of them, every Tennessee fan needs a little bit of happiness right now. I'm sure they're probably jumping for joy. So let's break in all the information about Aguilar, why he's a dynamic player, and why he fits their offense. First thing, just from a purely football standpoint, he throws the deep ball. If you're going to play in Josh Heupel's offense, you've got to have a strong arm. Not just by college standard, but like a really strong arm. They go horizontal with their splits, and they throw vertical. You're throwing 40 and 50 yards, probably as much, if not more, than any other team in college football when they have the right guy behind center. They go up top. Now, there have been some exceptions with this. Guys that are really, really good at reading things, they might throw a few more looping passes, whatnot. But while Nico has maybe the strongest arm I've ever seen in college, this guy can throw it down the field too. We're going to break down those numbers right now. If you want guys that can hit down the field, here's something to look at. Play action is the way to do it. Play action passes. Last year, now he didn't hit on a ton, but it was a pretty decent number. And you can, again, some of these are 15, 20, 30, 40 yards down the field at Appalachian State. 84 to 144, 58.3%. That's not too bad for deep shots. 8.9 yards per attempt, 13 scores, 4 interceptions, 1,278 yards. 2 points in addition to that. Number one, he's at App State. They don't have the same depth that Tennessee does offensively. And Tennessee's going to get more players in the portal too. they'll get another receiver. They might get another lineman. They might get a tight end, whatever. But they'll have players for him to get the ball to that it's going to help. Play action is going to work better for him at UT than it did at App State. Point two, Heupel just knows how to coach quarterbacks and his offense in general. I think he's proven that. No offense to App State, but I'll take Josh Heupel as the quarterback guy out of the two schools. No offense to anybody at App State. Heupel has proved he can coach quarterbacks. I think Aguilar's game will improve. Players around him will help it, but again, Heupel and his staff have figured it out. So Tennessee's offense can be run the same way, just from a passing standpoint and wanting to push the ball down the field. And here's the other part. Nico was a good runner. Joey Aguilar is too. As a runner last year, these are the kind of stats you don't think it's unbelievable, but he will extend drives. And they might, I don't know if they will for sure, but they might use him a little more than App State did, but take it for what it's worth. Pro Football Focus has Joey Aguilar at 55 carries, 336 yards, 6.1 yards per tote. It's pretty good. And a couple of scores. Now, in the Southeastern Conference, you can look at that two ways. I'll go over their schedule here in a second. But the Vols are going to go against a lot of teams where throwing the ball down the field is not so easy. But at the same time, you got to commit more guys to the box if Joey Aguilar truly wants to take off. RPO, designed runs, and of course, the ad-lib play where, hey, if I don't just get out of the pocket now, we messed up pass protection. There's a guy in my face. I got to make him miss, and I've got to make it happen on the run. Those 15-yard runs, those scrambles that kill a defense, that break their back, Aguilar can do that. How many more plays Coach Heupel wants to put in there that are designed or RPO, considering their backup quarterback position? Like, again, George McIntyre is the true freshman. Jake Merklinger, he's a redshirt freshman. They're just not ready. So don't think that that doesn't play into this. But he's a good player. And their schedule, and this plays into it too. Week 1, Syracuse. Week 3, Georgia. Week 5, I know it's Mississippi State, but it's on the road. They got their rival Arkansas. Week 7. Week 8's at Alabama. Kentucky always gives them a tough time. That's another rivalry game. Oklahoma, Heupel's old school, his alma mater. Week 10 at Florida. Week 12, and Vanderbilt, a school that's much improved with Diego Pavia in Week 13. So there's a lot of ways to look at that, but I think the feet for Aguilar will be just as important as the arm in many circumstances. Obviously, passing's first, but he's a very good fit there. As far as what he did last year, 2024, durability is on his side. As always, your best ability is your availability. 997 snaps. He started 13 of 14 games. I mean, that's a lot. And I know that he had some problems in terms of fumbles, like in 2023, he had 17. That's insane. But he cut those to 4. Offensive grade, 76.9. Passing, 76.1. Rushing, 61.7. The fumbles took that down. But he's pretty good at it. But I do have one concern otherwise, and I don't know enough about App State to answer this. So please, if you're on YouTube, you want to comment on the following, have at it. I don't know the answer here. How good were the skill players at App State this past year, especially, again, up top? Did they have a burner? I don't remember, and that matters. It doesn't mean you can't scheme it open, but he was 218 of 392 last year, 2,999 yards, 7.7, 23 touchdowns, 14 picks. The interceptions are a problem, but how many of those were him? Was it inexperienced receivers running the wrong routes, not making adjustments? Were there a lot of deflections? Was Aguilar throwing it into coverage? I mean, 14 is too high. Don't get me wrong. Some of those are definitely going to be on him, but that seems like a really big number to me for a guy that has as much talent as Joey Aguilar. So while I'm pretty sure that he's going to make a big dent for them, I think 8-4 is the bottom that Tennessee should go. Maybe they win at Florida. Maybe they win at Bama. I don't know. There are games they're going to be in. But again, did Appalachian State not have the receivers they need? Was there a problem at tight end, offensive tackle? Why so high a number at with the interceptions? Again, though, Heupel, I really, really trust him with quarterbacks. I think Nico would have taken a massive step this year if he'd have stayed at Tennessee. I think he's going to be a great fit this year. And more importantly, this is my final point on why I think it's a better deal for the Vols to have him. Nico was probably going to leave after this next year, take his chances with the draft. I think he'll be one and done at UCLA too, barring something unforeseen. You'll get Aguilar for 2 years, unless he really goes off. And then for your Vols fan, you're happy because you go like 11-1 or something and go to the playoff. But you'll get him for 2 years. That'll set your quarterback room up where you don't have to hit the portal. That is huge. If you do not have quarterback stability, you're not winning. That's just the way it is. So Tennessee gets the best end of this deal. And again, Nico and Madden were both at UCLA now, so that's a great fit for all parties involved. This ended about as well as it could have. It really did. So be happy for all parties involved. When we come back, we're going to talk about some guys that may not be so happy because if they don't hit in the spring portal, they're probably going to get either fired or going to be at least under heavy duress because they got to do it this year. That is next here on the Portal Podcast. Baseball season is in full swing, and there's no better way to get in on the action than with Prize Picks, the best place for daily fantasy sports. With Prize Picks, you pick more or less on at least 2-player projections, and if you're right, you can win up to 1,000 times your cash. Whether it's strikeouts, RBIs, or first-inning runs, Prize Picks keeps every game exciting. Build your lineup however you want. This week, I'm picking Aaron Judge for more than 1 home run and Shohei Ohtani for more than 1 stolen base. It's easy. You just got to pick 2 players. It's up to you. Pitcher, hitter, whatever it may be. And there's also opportunities for promos like Taco Tuesday, where Prize Picks offers discounts on select player projections for even more value. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 off instantly. You play your first $5 lineup. That's Locked On College for $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. Now, there are some coaches that are really hoping this spring window hits. They got tough schedules coming up. They've got some holes on their roster. Maybe some guys coming back for injury they're not sure about. So here are some schools that I think if they do not hit with the spring window, it could be the difference between not only having a successful 2025 football season, but keeping their jobs. Let's start with Oklahoma. Brent Venables is in an awkward spot. Wins 10 games in year 1, but they struggled mightily this past season. It was bad. And I'm not trying to pick on them, but like Oklahoma fans are used to success. Here's a couple of examples for what I'm talking about. And this isn't hard to understand because Oklahoma is one of the most tradition-rich programs in the country, but they were so bad on offense last year. I saw them play once live that it was hard to watch. It's one thing to lose. It's another to be really awkward. And at best, their offense was. This past season, Oklahoma was 6-7. And you got to remember, from 2015 to 2019, they won 11 or 12 games every single year. They haven't been quite the same since, but like you can't go down to 6-7 at Oklahoma. However, they've got arguably the most difficult schedule in the country this next year. It's either them or Florida. So this is going to be hard. I want to bring up the following things that they need. Receiver, number one, they need to be healthier. They had some guys leave. They got to get some health. They probably need to hit on a few more guys in the portal. They maybe, even if it's a depth piece, we'll find out. But they also just got to get better on offense in general, maybe an offensive lineman, etc. They did keep Stone, the 5-star defensive tackle that was a freshman last year. That's huge. Jaden Jackson and him came in from IMG last year, both played some. I think that's important. But more importantly, again, they got to get some splash. They certainly went out and got the right quarterback. I mean, they got John Mateer, and they already got Jaden Ott. Very talented player from Cal, a running back. He could be somebody. They got Marvin Jones at defensive end. That's a nice piece. But if Oklahoma doesn't get a couple more, especially for depth playing in that schedule in the SEC, there's a really good chance that staff's getting fired. They have to hit on pretty much everybody in the spring window, especially with that schedule. Another team, and this one's, I don't think he's going to get fired because he's so popular with some of the key boosters, but it's time. Mario Cristobal is in year 4 at Miami. If you can't win enough to get to the playoff with Cam Ward, I'm a little concerned. Carson Beck is good, but he's coming off a very awkward elbow injury. They play game 1 against Notre Dame. We'll find out a lot then, but that's still just one game. But can they win big games when you lose not one, but your top 2 receivers, arguably your top 3 tight ends? And I know they're loaded up front on the offensive line. They'll be good. Running back's good. should be pretty good at slot receiver and whatnot, but who's the boundary? Who's going to be the flanker? They don't have enough experience. I'm a little nervous. It's weird talking about Miami, really weird, at receiver. That's a school that, like Michael Irvin played there among many other players. You shouldn't have a problem. Reggie Wayne, etc. But I need to see it. Maybe they get Trevor Pena from Syracuse. That would help. But Miami needs to make a splash this year. They can't just fall back to like 7-5, 8-4, even 9-3. They need to win 10 games. It's besides the Notre Dame game being added, Miami probably needs to push towards 10 wins. They're pretty good in the trenches. They're experienced. They got Wesley Bissate and linebacker. Secondary is a big question. They got some players, and I'm going to talk about somebody they lost. It's going to hurt them a little bit here. I'm kind of concerned. They lost Emmanuel Carnley, the kid that transferred from Arizona to there. He's leaving. What's going on with Miami and their defensive backs? They've just overwhelmingly struggled. But Miami needs to win this year. If not, I think that, like, if they go 7-5, Cristobal will be in the hot seat next year. Even though he's an alum and he's popular, at some point you got to cut bait. He might be the one that can escape this year without getting fired. But again, it's time for Miami to do something, and the portal this spring will be huge. They're rivaled. This is awkward as it gets. I also cover Florida State, Locked On Seminoles. Covering a 2-10 team last year was not a good time. I know more about the Florida State roster right now than I'd like to in some ways because they got holes. They've lost 3 receivers, including Hakeem Williams, to the transfer portal. Jaylen Brown was the latest. They got holes there. They got to hit at receiver. If not, there's going to be problems. Secondarily, they need some players across the board, maybe another offensive lineman. There's some questions in the secondary because some guys got beat up, maybe a safety, maybe a corner. And above all else, they need playmakers. They won 2 games last year. The only reason Mike Norvell didn't get canned, let's be honest, he was owed over $50 million by the reports that I read. If that's even close, if it was 35, they probably weren't going to fire him because they were going through his stadium renovation and a whole bunch of things going on campus. The timing for going 2-10 could not have been worse because they just signed Norvell to a long-term deal. But if they go 4-8 or something like that this year, I don't know what happens. But I do know they've got major holes that they got to fill in the portal. Receivers, top of the board now. You got your quarterback in Thomas Castellanos. You got some good players up front on the offensive line so far, but depth is not where it needs to be. And they lost Jalen early to the portal. There's a lot of different pieces moving around, and I'm just not so sure. Even the secondary, at one point, I thought that was going to be good. There are question marks from those around the Florida State media in Tallahassee. Maybe they need to add a piece there. I don't know. D-line's probably the happiest spot. But final point, how does Norvell and newly acquired offensive coordinator Gus Malzahn get along? They're friends, but on those critical play calls, will they make it work? Coaching chemistry matters. That's something, an extended part of the portal, because, like, did you get the right guys? Are we calling the right plays? I have a lot of questions about Florida State, and at best, if they go 6-6, 7-5, they're going to be on the hottest of hot seats, and then next year he has to win or they're going to can him. Next, Auburn. This is the year. This is the year. If Auburn's staff doesn't get it done, because they've added a ton of portal players, they've added Jackson Arnold from Oklahoma, former 5-star quarterback. They got Deuce Knight back in a 5-star quarterback out of high school. And they've got a ton of, their receiver room is ridiculous. If they can't score this year, Hugh Freeze and his staff are getting fired. They know it. Everybody knows it. I just want to say it for the record. They went out and got some good defensive linemen, by the way. That'll help them, but they need to get over the hump. Like, they really need to get over the hump. They got to beat either Bama or Georgia. They got to have a big game, too. And no more of this. Like, they lost to Oklahoma at home last year. Come on, man. That was when Oklahoma was playing a quarterback that had no business starting, true freshman, etc. It was bad. We'll see what happens, but Auburn needs to make it happen. Maybe another DB. They're bringing a defensive back. Need to see what the quarterback play is and how they coach it up with Jackson Arnold. Who knows? But I'm concerned about Auburn making it this year. I think they'll win 7 or 8 games. Is that enough? I don't know. But if they fall to like 6-6, I think Hugh Freeze gets fired. Next, and this one's probably just as awkward as it gets. Like, there's no excuse for USC to be in the boat they're in. They haven't been physical enough in the trenches. They've over-recruited some of their high school kids or portal players, take some guys off, they've left. Plus, they haven't recruited the line, especially O-line, the way they should. Will they be good enough on the offensive line this year to win the big games? I think they're going to win 6 games, pretty much just pencil them in, but their schedule's tough. They got to play at Notre Dame. They're in the Big Ten now. We need to see it this year from Lincoln Riley. His contract is also massive. We'll see what happens there, but they need to do something. Like 8 wins is like bare minimum that they need to have. And I don't think that would satisfy USC fans. At that number, I'm not sure he's safe. They've got Danton Wynn, a really good defensive coordinator. You've got a quarterback now that's got experience. Maeva, like they've got some players. Can they get over the top? I still have questions for them. They lost Deuce Robinson to Florida State. That didn't help. Lost some guys to the NFL off offense, some running backs. They got a lot of different players going in and out. But if they don't get it done in the spring portal window and maybe get another offensive lineman, maybe another 1 or 2 players on defense, I think they're going to struggle in the big games. And that's what they've been complaining about as far as the fan base, rightfully so. USC needs to win big games. They let Penn State off the hook last year. They struggled with Notre Dame in certain sections of the game, both defensively and offensively. I know Jeremiah Love's a crazy, crazy talent, but like they just couldn't get out of their own way. And he was banged up, by the way. And they're still not consistent against teams that aren't as good as them. So they got to hit on the portal, shore up the trenches first off, maybe 1 or 2 more defensive players. Maybe it's a receiver. I still don't think they've gotten to where they need to be. If not, I could see some people calling for Lincoln Riley's head. Finally, this one's just blatant. Wisconsin. Not going to go in real depth because it's so obvious, but they concern me at corner. They lost Xavier Lucas to Miami. They concern me at receiver in terms of depth. They got a couple of pretty good receivers. They got Billy Edwards that came in, quarterback for Maryland. He'll be a good player for you. I think that's a nice bridge. Billy's a good player. But the running back room's very inexperienced. Got some talented guys, but they don't have a dude that's proven. And they don't have a really talented tight end to help that receiver group. Then on defense, how many pass rushers do you have? Like they've got a hit on a lot of spots. I do not feel good about that staff being employed at the end of this year in Madison. We'll see if I'm right. When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more about the portal in regards to who's in, who's out. That is next on the Portal Podcast. There's nothing like the atmosphere of an NBA game. Every bucket, every defensive stop, every moment feels huge. It's electric in the arena, and with Game Time, you can be a part of it without the stress of last-minute ticket hunting. Game Time makes it fast and easy to get playoff tickets, even when demand is sky high. Prices on the app actually go down as tip-off gets closer, and their last-minute deals can save you up to 60%. Here's an example. It doesn't just have to be the NBA. It could be a baseball game. It could be going to a movie theater. It could be going to a concert. Again, last-minute deals up to 60% off with Game Time. There's also all-inclusive pricing. So what you see at the beginning is what you get at the checkout. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Let's break into the transfer portal news. Like, it never ends. As I said yesterday and the day before, and I will say right now, I'm just touching on this. A few days ago, literally over 1,000 players, it was reported, entered the portal in one day. These are just some of the bigger names, some of the things that I thought were highlights. So please keep that in mind. But these are important players for sure. As I mentioned earlier, David Stone is going to be a guy coming back to OU, not somebody that is going to be in the portal. That changes things. Here's the key. There aren't many 5-star D tackles hanging out in the transfer portal, okay? He's played 1 year for OU. He was the number 5 player in the country for the class of 24 by Rivals.com for a reason. I got to know Stone a little bit when he was at IMG Academy down in Bradenton, Florida. That is a dude. Pass rusher, can stuff the run, 295 pounds, can change direction, all the physical attributes that you look for in a future NFL player. He's taking his name out. He's going back to OU. So that means something here that's very important for all the other teams. There are a bunch that are looking for defensive tackle. Demand is at a very high rate, and the supply is utterly pathetic. As far as impact defensive tackles, it's low. There are some guys with some possibilities, but overall, you're going to be taking some chances. Guys with talent, but not necessarily a lot of production. For instance, Denise White, defensive tackle, is leaving Florida State. That's one of the spots at FSU is actually in a pretty good spot. He's 320, 330 pounds, big dude out of the state of North Carolina. He's only been in Tallahassee for a year, but he didn't really play. Is the potential there? 100%. But if you need an impact guy, Denise White may not be your dude. But there may not be an option like that for your program, especially with what a top portal guy might ask if he's got production as a defensive tackle. You're likely to see even teams that are in the upper echelon of the P4 look at guys like Denise White a little more. Now, Murad Watson, the kid from Syracuse, is the other option here. He is proven. He's over 300 pounds, 6'2", 6'3", played at Syracuse, was one of the best freshman defensive tackles in the country. He's visiting Texas, by the way. Georgia, Ohio State, Tennessee. Those are some of the other teams involved. That kind of tells you what barometer we're looking at with Murad Watson. But that doesn't mean there aren't other guys either A, being induced, or B, just haven't got their paperwork through yet and it hasn't been announced. Today and tomorrow, mark it down. You'll see one or two D tackles get in. It's just the law of averages. They're going to get a lot of different phone calls. Those guys with the demand, it's going to be interesting to see what they do as far as visits and sign. But I'm just going to be bluntly honest here. I'm a little nosy on this. I'd love to hear some of the offers that actually get turned down for where these guys go. Any elite D tackle that gets in the portal, that's going to be intriguing. Running down the list, here's a really interesting one. Another guy you're kind of taking a chance on. Bill Belichick, he's looking for a bigger back. He wants to run some power football. Well, Benjamin Hall from Michigan, 5'11", 235, fits that, but only 29 carries for 72 yards last year. Potential. He had some recruiting flavor coming out of high school. He was a guy that was coveted, but he's going to North Carolina with little production. We'll see what can happen, but this is where the portal is fascinating. What one team doesn't want or doesn't really think they need, Bill Belichick, obviously a pretty good football coach, takes his opportunity to get Benjamin Hall from Michigan. Next up, Georgia, another kid that was really highly ranked, Chris Peel, 4-star corner, long, athletic, heavily recruited, but hasn't done anything in 2 years at Georgia. 6'1", 195 pounds. He is in the portal. Jaden Ball, offensive lineman that was at Purdue for a year. He's from Ohio. There are rumors that Ohio State's sniffing around. He is in the portal. I'm curious, is Ohio State in that, maybe I'm wrong here, but are they in that bad a position, O-line? This kid has barely played, but again, there's a rumor that Ohio State is involved, and his name again is Jaden Ball, originally from the state of Ohio. Bear Bachmeier, this is unfortunate. The Stanford saga continues. Incoming freshman is leaving Stanford before he gets there. Like, what do? I mean, they just changed their coach in March. I mean, it's awkward for Stanford, but he was highly recruited. Bear Bachmeier was one of the better quarterbacks on the West Coast. He'll have a bunch of opportunities, but at this late juncture, I don't know how that'll work. No experience yet, so he's essentially just a true freshman and kind of like a high school recruit again. That is a bit unusual. Mentioned him earlier, Emmanuel Carnley, the kid from Arizona that signed with the Canes, is back in the portal. 6'3" guy, one of the more highly rated corners in the country. He's an opportunist. Somebody's going to want a 6'3" corner. I'm quite confident in that. He won't be available long. Colorado, Deion Sanders. They are hosting Javion Thomas. I saw him play last year. The running back from Cal, he can fly. That would be a very big addition to the Colorado Buffaloes and Coach Prime. They need to be better at running, but they were terrible at it. They didn't even try. They've improved their O-line. They got Jordan Seaton, will be a sophomore. They got Xavier Hill coming in, got a couple other guys coming up the ranks. They should be able to run the ball better this year. Plus, they got Salter behind center. He's an RPO guy that can run it, but you need a running back that can bang it in there and take some pressure off the passing game. That would be a huge pickup if Jayon Thomas ends up at Colorado, but maybe he ends up somewhere else. We'll see. Finally, former Georgia wide receiver Nitro Tuggle is headed to Purdue. He is from the state of Indiana, so he's going back home. We are going to have more news later today in some way, shape, or form. It's just depending on when. Got some shows that I've done with some other hosts around the Locked On Network. Definitely going to be posting those, so make sure you stay tuned to the Portal Podcast. Subscribe, like, give us a thumbs up, 5-star review. All of it truly helps the show a bunch. We will see you again soon on the Portal Podcast.